Good morning. Hello. Happy Saturday to everyone. Pop in and say hi. I'd love to see your little faces in those boxes and know that you're there. So good morning. We are going to be finishing up with this series of blocks today, and so I want you to be ready for that, and then we're going to talk about what's coming up soon. Hi, Denise. Hello. Hello, Barbara. Hey, we got both coasts represented so far. Awesome. And Canada, great. Hello. All right, so today we're going to be doing a block called Circle Around, and it probably has some other names. What I have certainly found recently is that as I'm looking at blocks and working through different patterns and books and things that I'm working on, that I will find a block or a quilt, and it'll be the same thing but have different names. So you might have a different name for this block or whatever, but we're going to call it Circle Around because the center of it definitely is the other blocks do circle around that center one, so that's what we're going to call it for today. And I want to talk a little bit as everyone is coming on. During the program today, we're going to talk about what's coming up in 2 weeks. I will not be here next Saturday because I will be in Michigan for my fall retreat that I do there, and that is just outside of Kalamazoo. So for anyone who might be on in Michigan, hello, good morning, and that's where I'll be next Saturday. All right, let me drop down to the table so you can see. This is our block, and I want to talk a little bit about how I go about thinking in terms of sewing the block together when I get started. When I look at this, I see all these half square triangles, and I'm not a huge fan of them, but they certainly do make for some pretty stunning results in blocks and in quilts, table runners, all of that kind of thing. So as I looked at all of these half square triangles and thinking about making them, trimming them down, doing all that block after block, it becomes a little bit daunting for me. But a few years ago, I discovered these star singles papers. And yes, you do have to tear the paper off. I've heard that, but to me that's much easier than all the trimming that goes in with it because the paper does, come off pretty easily. And I'm going to encourage that you set your machine at, 2.0, and which is, what was suggested not long ago to us in terms of being a good, stitch length for quilting, because then the ends don't fray and stuff. And at 2.0, this paper comes off quite easily. So when I looked and counted around the outside edge, this first half square triangle, I needed 20 of them. So I can get 16 out of 2 papers. So then I only have to make 4 individual half square triangles, or I could make 3 with papers and have 4 extra half square triangles if I know I'm going to be making something maybe scrappy, or I'm going to use them in some other way. But for this block for today, I'm going to use 2 star singles, and I'm going to make 4 the way I've been showing you. The second round of half square triangles, I needed 16 of those, and so 12, and so I can do 1 of these and I can make 4 extra, and that's what I've chosen to do, and how I'm going to go about making these half square triangles. I know I've showed this to you a number of times, but I'm going to go through it again today because we always have somebody new who hasn't done this. And if you have, thoughts on how, you're thinking of putting a block together and all the half square triangles, I mean, we're all learn from each other, and it would be great to hear your ideas and thoughts on that. And you can, I think Kristen has a link up for the circle around block, so you can go ahead and link on that so you can get those down. And she also has a link for purchasing these star singles, and I have them in all the sizes that are available so that when I am working on something, I have them and I can grab a hold of them and use them. And I know that there's other ways on Pinterest and the internet to, create something like this on your own. And I've done that a number of times, and about every fourth or fifth one, maybe every third one, I will get it right. But I'm just always a little bit off on some of them, and I end up having to trim again. So I really advocate for the paper because it's always going to come out and be okay. But you have to kind of do what you're going to do. So I have already done the first round of half square triangles, and this one was a little hard to sew a lot of the quilt together to begin with. So I have sewed only one of the lines together, but I also have the two that I made, or two of those four that I've made for the center part. And then you have, so it's going to start to look like this as I finish it up with that centerpiece in there. And I really like this block, especially when you have rows of them done. And I've done it both as a solid, and I've done it also as, all the blocks the same, and that's what I meant by solid. All the blocks the same, and then I have switched up and done all the blocks different. And I like it both ways. So either way, it's going to give you, in my opinion, a stunning result. So again, if you have any thoughts and ideas on all the half square triangles, so my third and fourth fabric, my third fabric is this light yellow and blue print, and then my dark one is that one. And again, I used my my phone because this line of fabric was a little bit difficult to always get the value correct. So basically, put your your fabric's right sides together, and let me get to, and make sure they're even on there. Let me get rid of that. All right, so I've got my fabrics together, laying on and I'm going to start with number 1. And get that out of the way. And I start off the paper because I'm going to trim the paper anyway, so it's not that crucial for me to basically, for this paper, all you need to be able to do is follow that little dotted line. So you just completely go around in circles, and sometimes I don't hit the dot quite exact, so I simply raise my needle and move it where I need to go, and then around and around I go. And if you have other methods that you use, I appreciate the fact that you guys put ideas and things that you've done into the chat box, because like I said before, we all learn from that. And I've gotten some great tips and ideas from you through the years that I've been doing this. And those of you who've commented a number of times and come on week after week and are in the chat box, even though we've never met, for some of you, I feel like we've become old friends. Because I look forward to seeing you pop up in the chat box on weekends. And I would have to say that this is always more fun when there's people around. So I'm on number 6. And here goes line 7. And then so 8 I finish up and cut that off, and now it's the process of trimming. And I don't know where I think I'm going to try to use this smaller. And basically all you do now, and I'm going to stand for this, and I'm going to line that up, and to make sure that I have it where I need to trim off the sides, I put my, the 1/4 inch seam line around at least this ruler, or at least I put one of the lines so that I can see and then turn it around. I mean, everybody does this, does their trimming a little bit differently, but I find that by lining up around the outside edges, and then you sew on the dotted lines, and you're going to trim on the solid lines. And again, to make sure that I have it right on the money, I put my lines out here. I, get them lined up in both directions. And the reason that I love these papers so much is that when I take the paper off, I do not have to do any trimming. They come out exactly the size they need to be every single time. And for me, that's a huge savings in terms of time for me. And I appreciate that when I, have a lot of blocks to make, and especially when I don't have, tons and tons of time to leisurely go about So let's take a look at taking the paper off. Basically, all I do is fold it back, and the paper comes right off. Well, most of the time it does. And because I've set my machine at the 2.0 for quilting, which I sew with all the time now, since I, heard Alex talk about that. So I just basically finger press and then go for it. All right. and I get my half square triangles. And I'm not going to tear all the paper off right at this minute, so I'm going to put those aside for just a second. And then, so I make my half square triangles. I set the seam, press the side of the iron along that seam, and then simply set my iron down so I'm not stretching and getting those curves on my half square triangles. And that makes it very helpful. And then all I have to do is snip off the bunny ears, which is a lot easier than lining it all up and doing all that other trimming. Now the other way, and I've been showing you this, I've shown it to you a couple of different times this week, but when I only have 4 to do, or the paper doesn't work, or whatever, I can still take 2 squares, put them together, sew down both sides of, you know, the square to get my hat, and then cut it through the middle, simply like I did with the papers, in essence, and that works wonderfully. But I, you know, originally, when I was a child, learned to do it this way. The glue really helps hold the end piece in, putting a dot of glue down here so that when you're sewing, if your machine has a tendency to want to move the fabric or go side to side, I've shared this many times before, but I let my hand go along with this, and I hold it, you know, in the front for as long as I can, and then let go of that because my side hand is holding that in place, and I don't have that movement, or I don't lose my corners. And so the other way to make these, and I cut the squares before I, you know, in half at 3 inches, so that when I do square them up, I have a little bit of room to work, because you know, I don't always get them 100% on the money, and here, even at 3, I'm still having to trim just you know, a little bit. Should be 2 7/8 is what you cut these to, and on the pattern I have put 2 7/8 for you, because that's, you know, the magic number, and that's what it would be. And if you sew perfectly, the 2 7/8 will make it, and you don't have to do any trimming. But I never quite always get that. So I go 3 inches and trim that little bit off, and now I have my, you know, 2.5 in unfinished half square triangle, which will be 2 inches when I finish it. All right, so that's really the only thing that you're going to have to do for this block, is make all of those half square triangles. And again, here is the first row, the start of the second row. Actually, I've just lost it. that makes it kind of funny for me, because this one goes over on this side. Then this is going to be your center. And you can see how this block is going to, you know, to look. You're going to have, you know, this all the way around the outside edges, that medium dark fabric. Then you're going to have, you know, these pieces on the end. It's going to go, again, dark around the center of this block. And you're going to have Actually, the block will be down here because you're going to have another block there. So if we sew those two together, you're going to, let's just do that so you can see what those two rows look like. And, you know, here again is where that glue really comes in handy when you get that double seam coming there. And my little piece of fabric got stuck back there. All right, let's come back. And I am pressing all of these seams open because there are many of them that come together. And so I'm not pressing all of the seams, but when I sew the blocks together and put the rows together where the kind of 8 seams come together in there, it's going to be so now I have that. This comes down to here, and you're going to keep putting those blocks in. So you have this row, you have a lighter color, you have your lightest, and they're all coming around that center square. And so I chose to put, you know, kind of a focal print there. You could go the other way and make this a very light block instead, and make these more dramatic around the outside edges. So you've got lots of choices. I want to go to the chat box and see. A little bit of glue can be a wonderful thing. I love the way you said that. And Laverne, I agree. I get perfect wins too by using that. You could do flying geese instead of half squares. Absolutely. You can do that. Yeah, in the 90s I was hand drawing everything, even past the 90s for some of it. All right. I am not seeing any other questions. Do we have access to the printable? Yes, Magnolia. I know that's not your name, but we do. And we have put a link. Kristen has put a link several times. Actually, right below you, there's a link to it. So go there, and that'll make it really easy for you. Otherwise, it's on thequiltshow.com, and you can find it. All right, so this is the block, our last block for today. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. I find that it makes for a very, very beautiful quilt. And I want to talk a little bit about what's coming. And let me drop the camera down. So in 2 weeks, I have this book. It's called Rainbow Quilts. It's by Judy Gauthier, and I hope I'm saying her name correctly. And it was one of those books that just kind of blew me away because most of the quilts in here I really like. And it's no longer in print as a hardback or softback book, but we're going to have it available and for download. And so by Tuesday you should be able to get the book, and we're going to also have a starter kit of background fabrics, because one of the things that attracts me about these quilts is that I can do a mix of different fabrics for backgrounds and give me that little bit more modern, fun look that I particularly like. But in here, a lot of these blocks are with a solid, one color background. So it can go either way. And these are the quilts that are in this book. And as you can see, a lot of them are a lot of fun, and they're a little bit different. So you go from, the cathedral window blocks here to a different kind of, block on this with the circular and applique. You've got a total color story. So we're going to talk a lot about putting our colors together and getting that good mesh of fabrics that work and look a lot alike. And that's why I think the starter kit is going to be wonderful, because we're gonna start you out with a flow and a feel of fabric that is bright and happy, and that will go with all of these or any of them. And then you can add to that, and there's many fabrics available in the store to help with that. But here's something I would like to say to you or ask your help on. I know which ones are my favorite. I may not do all of the quilts in the book. I haven't decided how many, because part of me says, well, I want to do them all, but we'll see. But why don't you, my email address is right on the screen. The forum is available, and you can even put it in the chat box right now if you see one that you go, oh, I can't wait to make that one. Put those ideas down. Tell me which ones of these excite you the most, and we'll make sure that for those of you who really like some of these, I'll make sure that I do them, even though I like them all, and I'm having a tough time trying to decide if I'm going to leave any of them out. So let me go back to that screen. So anyway, 2 weeks. Next week, I'm in Michigan. And the week after, I think it's October 4th. I believe that's the date. I will be back on screen, and we will start with making these quilts. And on Tuesday of this coming week, the pattern and the fabric starter bundles are going to be available for you to purchase. And I hope you do, and I hope you join me on this next adventure. I think it's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of work for me, because I'll eventually want to make all the quilts. Even I've done one already and given it away as a baby quilt because I couldn't wait. And I have 2 brand new great nieces, or great nephews, that were born a couple weeks ago. And so anyway, working on that. I will see you next week. Have a blessed one.